Disappointing is the word I'd use to describe how I feel about Sonic Sunventure. There was so much more that, for a while, I was disillusioned into thinking that I could have really achieved with the hack. And whether I could have or not, the reality is I could have never made Sunventure into what I wanted it to be because it was my hack. With hindsight, I now realize that I had undertaken just far more than I was ever prepared to deal with, and that's what ultimately killed the hack. The scope creep built up too far, and I got too burnt out trying to achieve what I had envisioned that I lost my interest in continuing it. Sunventure, as I intended, won't be coming back, so I might as well show you what I had wanted it to be. After the 2022 hacking contest, I was filled with ideas on where to take the hack next, and admittedly, I got way too many ideas. More levels, more features, custom bosses, cutscenes, etc. The scope of what I wanted to do just kept creeping forward until I was no longer satisfied with what I could actually accomplish. Usually when this happens to me, as it often has, it just outright kills a project if I'm sold enough on these ideas, and as you can probably tell, yeah, that did happen. Usually most of my ideas just exist inside my own head because I'm bad at drawing. But I did put some small work into each of the cut zones I would have added, so I'll show what little I did have. Ice Zone is the first of these cut zones and would have been the game's second level, right after Green Hill. The zone's theme would have been an ice ruins in a glacier, and the first two acts would have taken place above ground with water platforming and some light puzzle solving. The zone would have also had ice physics in certain sections, and the third act would have shaken things up by completely taking place inside of a large ruin underground, similar to Labyrinth Zone. This concept art I did in April 22 while in that serious Ecco the Dolphin pack shows off some sketches of what the level could have looked like, though these were drawn for an earlier incarnation of the level. Lastly, I wanted to have a cutscene at the end of Act 3 where Sonic interacts with the time machine from Ecco 2 and travels to the future with it, leading to the next level, Future Bay. The whole game would have roughly used the same time travel structure as Ecco the Tides of Time, which can be seen in the final release as Scrap Ruins and Robotic Abyss use Sonic CD's Future Life icon. I don't know if anyone actually picked up on that, but if you did, well, that's why. Additionally, all other levels have their icons set to their intended time periods if you visit them in Level Select. If you use Level Select to visit Labyrinth 1, you can see the palette I was testing out for this level, and no more work was done besides that and the concept sketches. As for the now cut Future Bay, there were a lot more ideas I had for it that didn't make it into the Hacking Contest 22 build, since Future Bay's layout were started like 6 days before the updates deadline. It was pretty bad. I had a full art change planned for it, which you can see on screen now, but I got fed up with setting the collision for the grass art I was using because it didn't match Sonic 1's collision art, and it was just a whole mess. It was a pain in the ass. I threw the whole thing out. The experience was so bad that I still think making custom chunks is a total pain in the ass, even if I have admittedly developed better strategies for implementing custom chunks. It's just like, that was just such a bad experience for me. I had wanted to include more water pool sections, including areas where you'd enter and exit the water from the bottom of a pool or such. The pools were very inspired by the water bubbles from New Super Mario Bros. Wii in World 7-2, this specific level. So I really wanted to do more unique stuff with the water in this level, but never really got to because, well, well, I had also wanted to include electric fours like those seen in Sonic 3's Death Egg, as well as sections where you had to roll a ball to break barriers. The hang bar seen in the hacking contest build would have been moved to the next level, and Act 3 would have had a Metal Sonic fight. Yeah, the Metal Sonic statues in Scrap Ruin weren't just for show, but they were actually just for show. I had wanted to include a Metal Sonic boss in Scrap Ruins, but couldn't because, well, I can't code for shit. I had wanted to include all original boss fights for every zone in the game, with the exception of Final Zone, because I actually ended up quite liking the conveyor belt in Final Zone. After Future Bay 3, Sonic is sent back to the present for the next level Aero Vortex Zone, which would have probably played like Starlight with a little more platforming focus. Admittedly, I didn't come up with many gimmicks for this level, but one thing I wanted to do with the background was have it transition from an all-cloud, above-cloud backgrounds to a mountain range at the bottom of the level with the layer of clouds in the foreground, like placed above Sonic, to make it seem like you're descending from the clouds, to make it sort of a cool transition like that. I already mentioned I wanted to have a Metal Sonic fight in Scrap Ruins 3, but I also want to do something kind of unique at the end of that level specifically. Normally you have this reused Scrap Brain 2 cutscene that sends you to Robotic Abyss, but I wanted to reference the collision bug many streamers found when playing the SHC22 build, where if you jumped high enough against the top pillar, it'd break and Eggman would run away, allowing you to access an alternate final level called Vortex Ocean. This level would have been optional even inside the level, and by simply walking to the left of the level start, you'd go to Robotic Abyss. This was for a good reason, since it would have been the game's hardest level, with plenty of hazardous platforming and some puzzle solving. Beating either Vortex Ocean Act 1 or Robotic Abyss would send the player to Vortex Ocean 2, which would have been much easier compared to the first act, but still fairly challenging as the game's final level. I don't remember what gimmicks I wanted to include in Vortex Ocean specifically, but I did want Game Gear Sonic style tubes, and I would have probably reused the water pool objects from Future Bay. And that's pretty much all I had planned for Sunventure, but had to throw out. Even with the bit of technical support I had so graciously gained for the hack before I'd ended the project, by the time I got that help, I was already pretty burnt out. So I'll quickly mention why exactly I made those last two final updates. With the first update, I just hadn't touched the project in at that point 4 months and had no desire to even finish it. I was just done with it, but didn't want to leave it to the same fate that so many ROM hacks have, where they just never get updated after their last release. Plus, I figured that if I was never going to finish this hack, I at least wanted people to see the genuine improvements I had made to the game. So I cut all the unfinished features, threw together a playable build, and called it a day. In this case, it's fortunate I did such a terrible job at marketing it that nobody even seemed to notice it even got updated, because almost a year later, I realized that there were some gaping holes in the final build and put out the 2024 update. Though that's far from the biggest factor in my decision, that would actually be Razor and Xenon. This one requires some explaining. So, I've had this joke for a while. Well, it's actually more like a complaint than a joke, but I noticed that Razor and Xenon straight up didn't play either Sonic Hacking Contest release or the final release of Sunventure, even though they played the shitty 2022 final release of Sunventure that was so embarrassingly bad, I had to double back on it immediately. So after Giovanni released Giovanni's Level Pack 2, Razor and Xenon quickly did a playthrough that basically just copied his video. And after, we joked about him doing another playthrough of Sunventure for the Master Firecore channel. I suggested he go for all emeralds so we'd know if Razor and Xenon copied his video or not, because nobody went for all emeralds, and it was in that moment two crucial things happened. One, I realized the emerald placement in Scrap Ruins 1 was fucking atrocious. What the hell was I thinking? Two, I remember that Fuzzybit, who had joined the project earlier when I had made my help post, had actually implemented the Chaos Emerald that I always wanted out of nowhere in February 2024 after the hack was already dead. And so I updated it. I had originally started Sonic Sunventure just to mess around and make sunset palettes, coming off the languishing development of my previous hack, C2 Sonic, that got absolutely murdered in cold blood by scope creep. Sunventure was like a learning experience for me. It got me familiar with Sonic hacking, got my name on the board, but as soon as the scope creep came back, the hack just died. Though it's not like development was ever easy up until that point. I've wanted to bury this hack many times. I've tried to do it a few times as well, but it seems no matter what I do, this hack just keeps coming back to haunt me. Though, this time it's pretty dead and buried. Well, there's nothing left to do. No more business left unfinished. And those grand ideas I had for it will just have to sink back into the tides of time. Besides, it's time I move on to other projects and leave this one behind. I just have no desire to work on it anymore, but given how many times I've said I've done with it for reals this time and go back on my word, I don't think I can say it's forever dead. All I can say is, no one's ever really gone.